Do you feel that something is missing in your quest to turn dreams into reality? Do you want more clarity, balance, and control over your life? If so, you've come to the right place. Today, we're going to dive into some powerful ancient wisdom that continues to change lives in our modern world, not through magic or tricks, but through a time-tested philosophy: Stoicism. Stoicism teaches us to focus on what really matters: our actions, reactions, and mindset. By mastering the way we think and act, we can transform not only ourselves but everything around us. In this video, you'll discover 15 essential Stoic principles that will bring more serenity, strength, and purpose to your daily life. Each principle will be explained in detail with insights from the great Stoic philosophers who show us how to apply this wisdom in practice. Before we begin, I challenge you. If you connect with this journey of self-discovery and want to develop a Stoic mindset, write "I am Stoic" or "I am learning Stoicism" in the comments. This will not only strengthen your commitment, but will help spread this valuable knowledge to others who need it. So take a deep breath, relax, and get ready for a journey into the heart of Stoicism. And if this content appeals to you, don't forget to like it, subscribe, and hit the notification button to receive more valuable teachings. Ataraxia, the journey towards a more balanced and self-centered life, begins with ataraxia. This fundamental Stoic concept of Greek origin means inner peace or imperturbability, a state of mind in which external factors cannot shake you. For the Stoics, true happiness is not found in possessions, the validation of others, or circumstances beyond our control, but in the stability of our inner world. In today's reality, where we are constantly bombarded with demands and comparisons, ataraxia can seem far away. However, it can be achieved when we accept things as they are, without trying to bend the universe to our will. This doesn't mean resignation, but awareness that some elements cannot be controlled, although we can direct our response to them. This change of perspective helps to reduce anxiety and cultivate genuine serenity. Seneca once said that the free-spirited person is not attached to external things and is therefore not disturbed by what is beyond their control. In this view, those who control their reactions control their destiny, suffering less and better, understanding what happens around them. We stop seeing setbacks as insurmountable tragedies and start seeing them as natural parts of existence. Regular reflection on our emotions and beliefs brings us closer to ataraxia, teaching us to observe our responses to the situations we face without judgment. When we understand that problems often lie more in our interpretation than in the event itself, we deal with challenges in a more balanced way. Epictetus once said, "It is not the event that disturbs you, but your opinion of the event." By internalizing this idea, we realize that how we react is more important than what we would like to happen. Another crucial point is to develop an attitude of acceptance towards the inevitable. Resisting forces we can't change creates internal conflicts and takes us away from tranquility. Amor fati. Amor fati, the second great Stoic principle, means love of fate. This concept invites us to accept and appreciate everything that life throws at us, be it happy moments or unexpected challenges. Instead of resisting or complaining, we learn to see each experience as an essential part of our journey. The concept does not suggest passive resignation, but an active acceptance of reality. By understanding that everything happens for a purpose, even if we don't immediately understand it, we begin to see every situation as an opportunity for growth. Instead of fighting against circumstances, we direct our energy towards what we can learn and transform. We often avoid discomfort and want life to go exactly according to our wishes, but reality doesn't work like that. Amor fati teaches us to accept events as necessary and to find meaning in each one without wasting energy resisting what is already a fact. Epictetus once said, "Don't try to make things happen as you wish, but wish things to happen as they do, and your life will be serene." This means that instead of clinging to an ideal of how things should be, we find peace in accepting life as it really is. This principle also teaches us to deal better with the unexpected. If we lose something, fail, or face difficulties, we can view these moments as inevitable parts of our development. With every setback comes an opportunity to learn, evolve, and become more resilient. But amor fati doesn't just apply to difficulties. It also teaches us to cherish the good times without fear of them ending. When we live intensely in the present and accept both the joys and the challenges, we free ourselves from attachment and constant dissatisfaction. Marcus Aurelius said, "Accept without pride, let go without attachment." This teaching reminds us that everything in life is temporary, and by accepting this truth, we find a more balanced way of living. Prosh. Prosh, or mindfulness, is the third key to Stoicism and represents the ability to live in the present with full awareness. For the Stoics, true wisdom lies in concentrating on the now without clinging to the past or worrying excessively about the future. When we practice mindfulness, we observe our thoughts and emotions without judging them, directing our energy towards what we can really control. In the modern world, we are constantly distracted, torn between memories of what has passed and expectations of what may yet happen. However, true strength comes from being able to deal with the present without resisting reality. Instead of wishing things were different, mindfulness teaches us to act in the best possible way within the circumstances we have. Epictetus said, "What disturbs you is not what happens, but your opinion of what happens." This idea reminds us that a large part of suffering comes from our own interpretation of events. When we focus on the now, we realize that our worries are usually created by anxious thoughts and not by concrete facts. The practice of prosh helps us to see our emotions and reactions more clearly. When we are mindful of the present, we avoid acting impulsively and develop greater self-control. Anger, fear, and frustration no longer dominate us because we learn to see them as temporary states. This allows us to make wiser decisions and avoid unnecessary regrets. In addition, mindfulness teaches us to let go of the desire to control everything around us. Many frustrations arise because we insist on changing what is out of our reach. However, by focusing only on what we can really transform, our actions and choices, we find a new, lighter, and more balanced perspective on life. Eudaimonia. Eudaimonia, translated as good life or happiness, is the fourth key to Stoicism. For the Stoics, true happiness is not found in the pursuit of momentary pleasures or the accumulation of wealth, but in virtuous and purposeful living. This state of fulfillment is achieved when we choose to act according to reason and the principles we consider right, regardless of external circumstances. We usually associate happiness with comfort, material success, or the absence of difficulties. However, this view makes us hostage to factors we can't control and which, sooner or later, will change. The Stoics teach us that true satisfaction comes from within, from how we lead our lives and from the kind of person we choose to be. When we strive to act with justice, courage, temperance, and wisdom, we find a happiness that doesn't depend on chance or the opinion of others. Epictetus said, "Wealth does not consist in having many possessions, but in having few needs." This phrase illustrates well the idea that eudaimonia is not about accumulating, but about living in a balanced way, without excessive attachment to what is beyond our control. After all, those who always want more never feel satisfied, and this Constant dissatisfaction prevents true happiness from flourishing. Eudaimonia invites us to reflect on what really matters. Instead of seeking external validation or fleeting rewards, we learn to value our actions and find meaning in what we do. This doesn't mean that we should reject life's pleasures, but that we shouldn't depend on them to be happy. Pleasure can be a natural consequence of a life well lived, but it shouldn't be the main goal. Another essential point of eudaimonia is resilience. Life is full of challenges, losses, and unforeseen events, and those who base their happiness on external factors end up suffering more when they face difficulties. The Stoics teach that by building a life based on virtue, we become stronger and less vulnerable to the changes of fate. Memento mori. Memento mori, or remember that you are going to die, is the fifth key to Stoicism and perhaps one of the most impactful. Far from being a morbid or pessimistic thought, this reflection invites us to see life with greater clarity and urgency. The reminder of mortality should not generate fear, but inspire action, leading us to seize each day with purpose and meaning. We live as if time were infinite, putting off decisions, leaving words unsaid and dreams unfulfilled. However, the only certainty we have is that life has an end. Stoicism teaches us that accepting this truth is not a reason to despair, but a call to live fully. When we understand that time is our most precious asset, we begin to value it and use it more wisely. Seneca wrote, "It is not that we have too little time, but that we waste too much of it." This thought reinforces that most of our dissatisfaction comes from the misuse of time, not the lack of it. We spend days trapped in distractions, futile, worries and regrets that change nothing. Memento mori reminds us that every moment counts and that we should dedicate ourselves to what really matters. Practicing this philosophy helps us to value the present more and to see each day as a unique opportunity. Small annoyances lose their force in the face of the grandeur of existence. Petty arguments, unnecessary resentments, and unfounded fears stop consuming our energy. We realize that, in the end, none of this will matter that much. Furthermore, by accepting death as a natural part of life, we free ourselves from the exaggerated fear of its arrival. This doesn't mean that we should be reckless or act irresponsibly, but that we should learn to live with this reality without letting it paralyze us. Stoicism invites us to face the end with serenity, knowing that what really matters is not how much time we have, but how we choose to live it. Enkratia. Enkratia, or self-control, is the sixth Stoic key and one of the pillars for achieving a balanced and virtuous life. For the Stoics, mastering oneself is the basis for living according to one's principles without being dragged down by impulses, momentary desires, or external circumstances. True power lies not in controlling the world around us, but in governing our emotions, thoughts, and actions. Self-control protects us from rash decisions and unnecessary regrets. In a world where we are constantly stimulated by desires, other people's opinions and unexpected challenges, the ability to remain calm and act with discernment sets us apart. While many react automatically to situations, the Stoic reflects before acting, ensuring that their choices are in line with their values. Seneca wrote, "Nothing is enough for someone who considers enough to be too little." This phrase reminds us that self-control doesn't mean suppressing everything we want, but developing a healthier relationship with what we want. We often seek ephemeral pleasures to fill a void that can only be filled by something deeper: purpose, discipline, and awareness. The practice of enkratia helps us to resist destructive impulses, whether it's anger in a moment of frustration, the desire to procrastinate, or the desire to give in to temptations that can distance us from what really matters. Controlling yourself. is not just a show of strength, but a path to true freedom. After all, those who have no control over themselves become slaves to their emotions and instincts. In addition, self-control allows us to face challenges with serenity. Instead of reacting impulsively to criticism, difficulties, or setbacks, we learn to observe the situation clearly without letting our emotions guide us irrationally. This makes us more resilient and helps us make wiser decisions. Oikeiosis, or a sense of belonging, is the seventh Stoic key and reminds us that no one exists in isolation. For the Stoics, we are part of a larger community and have a responsibility to act not only for our own benefit, but also for the collective well-being. This principle teaches us that by recognizing our connection with others, we cultivate a more meaningful life that is in line with true human nature. We are often led to believe that absolute independence is a sign of strength. However, Stoicism shows us that our true greatness lies in the way we relate to others. Humans are social beings by nature, and personal fulfillment is directly linked to how we contribute to the world around us. When we act ethically and responsibly, we not only strengthen our own principles, but also positively influence the people around us. Heracles, a Stoic philosopher, developed the concept of concentric circles of belonging. At the center is the individual, surrounded by family, then friends, the community, humanity, and finally the cosmos. This vision reminds us that we are not isolated, and that every choice we make has repercussions beyond ourselves. By recognizing this impact, we assume a greater commitment to the collective and become agents of transformation, both in our own lives and in the lives of those around us. Seneca wrote, "We live for others so that we can live for ourselves." This teaching reinforces that there is no contradiction between taking care of oneself and contributing to the common good. On the contrary, by strengthening our relationships and acting consciously in society, we also grow as individuals. The practice of oikeiosis does not mean that we should cancel ourselves out for the sake of others, but rather find a balance between our personal interests and the impact we have on the world. Often, small actions such as showing empathy, sharing knowledge, or offering help create positive effects that go far beyond what we imagine. Love for humanity. Love for humanity is the eighth Stoic key and reminds us that, despite our differences, we all share the same human condition. For the Stoics, cultivating kindness and generosity was not just a moral issue, but a conscious choice to live in accordance with nature. This principle teaches us to treat others with empathy, compassion, and respect, without expecting rewards or recognition. In a world where we are often led to act out of self-interest, Stoicism invites us to look beyond our immediate needs and recognize the value of cooperation and mutual care. It's not about sacrificing ourselves for others, but acting with kindness, remembering that small acts of kindness can have a profound impact. Seneca wrote, "No act of kindness, however small, is ever wasted." This thought reinforces that every generous attitude counts. A simple gesture of support can transform someone's day, just as a word of encouragement can make all the difference at a difficult time. The Stoics believed that by helping others, we also help ourselves. The good we do not only strengthens our relationships, but also improves our character and brings a greater sense of purpose. When we cultivate generosity, we become less dependent on external recognition because we begin to find satisfaction in doing what is right. Love for humanity also teaches us to avoid hasty judgments. We are often quick to criticize or condemn others without understanding their struggles and challenges. Stoic philosophy invites us to replace criticism with understanding, arrogance with humility, and contempt with empathy. Epictetus said, "Soften your heart towards humanity and you will be freer." This reminds us that holding grudges or acting harshly does not strengthen us, but imprisons us. True freedom comes when we free ourselves from the need to act coldly and cultivate an attitude of understanding towards life and people. Moderation. Moderation is the ninth Stoic key and represents balance in all areas of life. For the Stoics, avoiding excess was essential to achieving tranquility and true happiness. This means not only resisting excessive pleasures, but also avoiding extremes of unnecessary suffering and deprivation. The secret to inner peace lies in the middle ground, where we find harmony between our needs and desires. In today's society, we are encouraged to want more money, more status, more stimulation. However, the incessant search for immediate satisfaction can lead us into a cycle of constant dissatisfaction. The Stoics teach that true freedom does not lie in abundance, but in the ability to appreciate what we already have, without being overly dependent on external factors in order to be happy. Epictetus said, "True wealth lies not in possessing much, but in needing little." This reflection reminds us that attachment to the superfluous often makes us prisoners of our own desires. Those who always want more are never satisfied because their mind is always focused on the next achievement instead of appreciating the present. Moderation also applies to emotions. We are often overwhelmed by intense feelings, such as anger, anxiety, or euphoria. Stoicism teaches us not to be slaves to our emotions, but to cultivate a state of balance in which we don't get carried away by either uncontrolled enthusiasm or despair. Mastering our reactions helps us make more rational decisions and avoid regrets. Seneca wrote, "Nothing is so enslaving as a person who lives according to the appetites of others." This reminds us that moderation also involves knowing how to say no to external influences that distance us from what really matters. We often seek social approval or let ourselves be carried away by imposed standards, losing connection with our own needs and values. Differentiating what we can control. The Stoics always emphasized that the key to living with serenity is to distinguish between what is within our control and what is not. This principle teaches us to direct our energy towards our own actions and thoughts, instead of exhausting ourselves trying to change external factors beyond our reach. When we understand this difference, we find an inner peace that doesn't depend on circumstances, but on how we choose to deal with them. We often suffer because we insist on controlling the uncontrollable. We want people to act in certain ways, for events to unfold as we expect, for the world to adapt to our wishes. But reality doesn't work that way. Stoicism reminds us that instead of wasting energy trying to change what is out of our control, we should focus on what we really can influence: our reactions, choices, and perspective on the facts. Epictetus said, "If you want to progress, accept appearing ignorant or foolish about many things that are out of your control." This teaching reminds us that we shouldn't worry about other people's opinions or factors that we can't change. The more we accept this truth, the less we will worry about external judgments, and the more we will strengthen our inner balance. This distinction also teaches us to deal better with frustrations. If something doesn't go according to plan, instead of despairing or rebelling, we can reflect on what we can do to improve the situation. If nothing can be done, then the best attitude is to accept and move on without carrying unnecessary weight. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference." This thought sums up the Stoic spirit. It's not about passivity, but emotional intelligence to invest energy only in what we can really transform. Premeditatio malorum. The Stoics had a habit of visualizing difficulties before they happened, not as a form of pessimism, but as a mental exercise to strengthen resilience. This principle is called praemeditatio malorum, which means anticipation of evils. By thinking about the possible adversities that may arise, we prepare ourselves emotionally to face them, reducing the impact of surprise and avoiding impulsive reactions. Instead of simply hoping that everything will work out for the best, the Stoics teach us that prudence lies in recognizing that unforeseen events are part of life. Preparing for the worst doesn't mean waiting for it to happen, but being mentally ready if it does. This practice gives us more control over our emotions and prevents us from being overwhelmed by fear or frustration when things get out of hand. Seneca said, "He who always expects only good things is not prepared to face the difficulties of life." This teaching reminds us that ignoring challenges doesn't prevent them from happening. On the contrary, it makes us more vulnerable to them. The truly wise person is the one who considers the possible obstacles and therefore doesn't despair when they appear. Premeditatio malorum can be applied practically in everyday life. Before an important situation, such as a work meeting, a trip, or a difficult conversation, reflect on the possible problems that could arise. What could go wrong? How can we react in the best possible way? This mental preparation reduces anxiety and allows us to act with more clarity and confidence. This exercise also teaches us to accept the impermanence of life. Everything can change at any time, and those who understand this adapt better to unexpected transformations. By visualizing difficulties and developing strategies to deal with them, we stop fearing the future so much and start living with more security and peace of mind. Universal connection. The Stoics believed that we are part of something much bigger and that everything in the universe is interconnected. This principle, known as universal connection, teaches us that our actions don't just affect ourselves, but the entire community. Living according to this awareness means acting responsibly, recognizing that we are parts of a large system and that our behavior influences the world around us. In modern society, we often see ourselves as isolated individuals, guided only by our own interests. However, Stoicism invites us to see beyond this limited view and understand that every decision we make, directly or indirectly, affects those with whom we share our lives. By adopting this perspective, we begin to act with more empathy, responsibility, and wisdom. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "What is not good for the hive is not good for the bee." This reflection reminds us that our well-being cannot be separated from the collective well-being. If we want to live a full and balanced life, we need to contribute to a more harmonious environment, because what harms the whole inevitably harms each one of us. When we understand this connection, we begin to evaluate our choices more deeply. Are our words and actions building or destroying? Are we seeking only individual benefits or considering our impact on others? This awareness allows us to make decisions in line with a greater purpose, reducing selfishness and strengthening our sense of belonging. Seneca wrote, "None of us is born only for himself." This teaching reinforces that our existence has value not only for ourselves, but for those around us. Living with this notion makes us more generous and helps us create more authentic and healthy relationships. Universal connection also reminds us that nature follows its own flow and that everything that happens has a purpose within this greater order. Instead of resisting change or fighting the inevitable, we learn to accept the natural course of things and act in harmony with it. By contemplating this interconnectedness, we become more aware of our role in the world. Our personal evolution doesn't happen in isolation. As we grow, we inspire others to grow too. The good we do for others comes back to us in ways we often can't imagine. Practicing this principle on a daily basis means cultivating attitudes that benefit not only ourselves, but also the people around us. It means acting justly, being an example of integrity, and understanding that our choices have repercussions beyond our immediate circle. Arete. The 13th Stoic key is arete, which translates as excellence of character. For the Stoics, the goal of life is to shape a virtuous character and live in accordance with nature. Arete means cultivating virtues and aligning our actions with the values we consider right, understanding that genuine happiness does not depend on external factors, but on who we are and what we do. Epictetus reminds us, don't try to make things happen the way you want them to happen the way they do, and you will have a peaceful life. In other words, peace and happiness result from how we interpret events, not just from the events themselves. By developing arete, we perfect our character and live in harmony with our values, keeping the focus on inner growth. This principle teaches us to strive for excellence in everything we do, not for recognition or reward, but because it is the right way to live. The Stoics believed that virtue is its own reward, and that by cultivating excellence of character, we find true fulfillment. This doesn't mean being perfect, but rather continually working to improve ourselves and aligning our actions with our highest principles. Practicing arete means making choices based on what is right and not on what is easy or convenient. It means speaking the truth, even when it's difficult, showing courage in the face of adversity, and treating others with respect and dignity, regardless of the circumstances. Duty. For the Stoics, each individual has a moral duty both to themselves and to the collective. This principle teaches that we should act not out of obligation, fear, or self-interest, but because doing what is right is the only coherent choice for someone who seeks to live with integrity. When we recognize that our actions have an impact beyond ourselves, we develop a greater sense of responsibility and align our decisions with solid values. In modern society, where people often seek immediate rewards or avoid responsibility, Stoicism reminds us that fulfilling our duty is not a matter of convenience but of character. Acting with justice, honesty, and uprightness not only strengthens our own essence, but also creates a more harmonious and balanced environment around us. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Do what is in harmony with the nature of a good man." This means that we should always try to act as our best version, regardless of the circumstances. When guided by principles rather than momentary impulses, we cultivate a state of inner peace and contribute to a more just world. Stoic duty is not limited to great actions. It manifests itself in everyday life, in the small choices we make every day. Honoring commitments, treating others with respect, being fair even when no one is watching, all this reflects a commitment to virtue. True ethics do not depend on external recognition, but on an internal commitment to what we know is right. Seneca said, "The reward of a good deed lies in having done it." This teaching reminds us that fulfilling our duty is in itself a reward. We shouldn't act expecting gratitude, praise, or benefits, but because righteousness is a non-negotiable value. Logos, or universal reason, is the 15th and final Stoic key. For the Stoics, the universe follows a rational and coherent order, and living in harmony with this logic allows us to make wiser and more balanced decisions. This means seeking the truth through reason, avoiding choices guided only by momentary emotions or impulsive desires. In the modern world, where decisions are often made based on instinctive reactions or external pressures, Logos teaches us to cultivate critical thinking and act wisely. Instead of letting ourselves be carried away by impulses or futile concerns, we learn to analyze each situation clearly, always seeking the answer that is most in line with reason and justice. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Everything that happens happens as universal nature wants it to happen. This perspective reminds us that there is a greater order that governs events, and resisting this reality only generates suffering. When we accept this logic and adjust our attitudes to it, we can live with more serenity and purpose. Applying logos in everyday life means acting in a way that is consistent with our principles, avoiding being carried away by fleeting impulses. It also means seeking knowledge, questioning our beliefs, and assessing challenges with a rational mind, rather than reacting in an exaggerated or emotionally charged way. Seneca wrote, "Reason is what distinguishes us from other living beings. To use it well is the key to true freedom." This teaching reinforces that mastery over our mind is what makes us truly free. When we make decisions based on logic and reflection, rather than uncontrolled emotions, we gain more autonomy and clarity in our choices. We've reached the end of our journey through the 15 Stoic keys to focusing on yourself. Each of them offers a path to a life richer in meaning, from the search for inner peace to the connection with universal reason. These principles teach that we have the power to control our actions and reactions, live according to our values, and contribute to collective well-being. Stoicism is not just an ancient philosophy, but a practical guide to everyday life. Incorporating these teachings allows us to achieve inner peace, live with purpose, and unleash our true potential. The path to a fulfilling life lies not in trying to change what is beyond our control, but in transforming our perspective and acting wisely. Are you ready to apply these principles and embark on this journey of self-discovery? As Seneca said, "It is not because things are difficult that we do not dare. It is because we do not dare that they are difficult." May these teachings inspire you to cultivate a more balanced, conscious, and meaningful life.